Hi, welcome to Wedding Planning Wednesdays. My name is Jane Yu. I am the co-founder and lead planner at UNS Events, and I help engaged couples plan and design their wedding from beginning to end. I love supporting my couples by keeping their stress levels to a minimum and their enjoyment, hopefully, to a maximum by providing step-by-step guidance along their wedding planning journey. I don't know if you knew this, but the couple books an average about 14 wedding vendors for a standard wedding day. And it might not seem like a lot at first, but if you really think about it, doing all of the research and figuring out pricing and then ultimately deciding on which vendor you should book for each service is it's kind of a lot, right? If you really think about it. And I'm not talking about vendors that you purchase things from per se. I'm talking about, like wedding dresses or attire or things like that. Of It's not really including any of those. It's only people who are actually uh, you're booking their service that they are going to execute some service on your wedding day. Now, when I was planning our wedding, this was a while ago, but I remember making a spreadsheet when we were venue shopping, and it was maybe a list of at least 30 venues. And it was kind of all over the place. Like, I didn't have any kind of plan. I just made a list because we knew we were going to be getting married in LA, and it was no organization or anything whatsoever. And so, as I was thinking back to that, I wanted to kind of set you up with an approach that is going to hopefully help cut a little bit of that overwhelm out and almost too much information being thrown at you, keeping that to a minimum because you're going to have to sift through so much information and then ultimately make a decision and ultimately spend quite a bit of money on all the vendors. So you want to you want to make sure that you're spending or making the right decision for you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how you set up your approach for researching vendors. And hopefully this will kind of help set the framework and just set the tone for how you go about things. If you've listened to any of my other videos or watched any of my other videos, you know that setting the foundation is really important. And I really emphasize that a lot. And I think it's because if you take a little bit more time on the front end to get organized, especially your thoughts between you and your partner, it's just going to help that process a lot more. So similarly with vendor research, you want to hone in on what you are looking for. You really want to hone in on what you're looking for. And so that means that you want to figure out what kind of design or style the person or the vendor is providing, or what you want in a vendor. For instance, maybe personality is really important to you. You want someone who's a real go-getter, who's going to be really communicative throughout the process. And that's really important to you. So that's something that you should look for when you're reaching out to vendors. Let's say their design aesthetic is really important. You really want to go after this floral designer because of their style and the colors that they usually use and the way that they execute ceremony altar arrangements. Maybe that's something that you're really, really looking for. And so if you write down all of these priorities, you're going to, and you start doing the research, you'll more quickly be able to narrow down what vendors you do want to reach out to. I think the mistake that many couples likely make is reaching out to too many people on places like The Knot, like marketplaces like that, because you can kind of mass search people that could be a good fit for you. And then they just send out a blanket kind of mass inquiry message. And I think that's not the best approach because then you're not going to get qualified information back. If you narrow it down to maybe 3 to 5 max per category, I think those are going to be much more qualified. You can, of course, narrow them down further based on budget and availability. But I think that's something that you should start with is just figuring out what's important for you for each category and then narrowing it down to 3 of your to 5 of your favorites and then reaching out after that. My second tip is, how do you know who to trust, right? Is based on that question. And that's a really good question that a lot of people probably ask, because it's kind of scary if you find someone on social media and then they're asking you for thousands of dollars to photograph their wedding or to plan your wedding. And I think the best way to get qualified people that you might trust is to ask people in your life, friends or family who might have gotten married already or planned another event, and ask them for referrals. I think referrals are definitely one of the best ways to find qualified vendors. If someone you trust can speak on their behalf, has experience with them, then of course that's going to hopefully uh, be a good lead already for you. Um, Similarly, I think using testimonials, like let's say you don't really have friends, like maybe you're the first person in your friend group who's getting married, congratulations. And you don't have anybody that you know that has gotten married, or at least more recently. So you want to reach out to, or you want to look on different websites, like the Knot or Google or Yelp or whatnot, to see what past clients have said about those vendors. I think if they're new, of course, like they're not going to have as many reviews, but even if they have only 3 reviews, what are those clients saying about them? I think that's really important. And if they're using language to point out things that are important to you, that you honed in on previously before you even reached out to them or did the research on them, then you know that they could be a good fit for you. Another way to get referrals is, venues a lot of times have preferred vendor lists. If you have a planner, then planners usually have a lot of vendors that they've worked with and can recommend to you based on your budget and your style. But I think in terms of venue lists, it's a really great starting point to start research, to see what the pricing even is for a lot of the vendors. If you have no idea what standard industry pricing is, it's a great place to start. I have seen posts out there, or people talk about how some vendors pay to be on these venue preferred lists. Although I am, like, our company UNS is on some venues preferred lists, and we do not pay to be on those. And I don't believe those venues take payments to put vendors on their list. I only ask a venue to put us on the list if we've worked with them before and if we have a relationship and I intend on bringing clients back to that venue. So I would be a little bit wary. There may be some venues who do accept payments from their vendors. I have offered referral fees to venues in exchange for putting us on the list. But in that case, I would be upfront with my clients, if anytime I refer somebody, that, hey, I do take a commission fee if you do book this vendor. So referral fees are a whole other thing that we can cover in another session, but venue lists are a great place to start as well. And a lot of times those vendors have worked in those venues before, and not that that's entirely necessary, because I've worked in many venues that I have never stepped foot in before as a planner. But of course, it does really help if someone has worked in the venue before. They can inform you of all of the kind of nuances of being in that space. Now, venues and vendors are a little bit different, right? But venues, you definitely have to go see, especially if you're local. You should definitely go see the venues and see how the flow is, see how you actually like it in person. For destination weddings, I understand it's probably a little bit more challenging because you might not be able to just pick up and travel to Europe if you want a French wedding or something like that. But I think at minimum, if you can do like a pretty detailed virtual tour, as the venue to take you on FaceTime or some kind of video tour, so that you can really see the flow. Or if it's somewhere in the US, maybe your family is in the city that you're getting married at, and you ask them to go on your behalf, and these are the things that you should look out for. I will be doing a live session on venues, and I also have a YouTube video that I created, so I can link it in the notes below. But in terms of what to look out for venues, even if you are not able to go see it in person. So venues, obviously, you do want to go see in person. I think it's really important to have a venue rep that is going to be really communicative with you as much as possible. I really find that a good venue rep really makes or breaks the experience, at least from a planner's point of view. So that's just my 2 cents about that. As far as vendors go, I think getting on a discovery call with them, I definitely recommend that, especially for a planner, coordinator, photographer, um, even DJ and floral designer. I think these are all vendors that are totally worth getting on a discovery call with, because it's going to inform you a lot about the way that they work, about how knowledgeable they actually are. Because sometimes when you find someone on social media, it may look like they have so much experience, but when you actually talk to them, your gut might tell you something else. And so I think it's really important to have questions that you can ask them. And I can't go through all of the questions for all the vendors right now, but I can definitely do follow up videos about it. Um, Asking pointed questions to get a sense of their experience, to get a sense of how comfortable they actually are doing their job, and also how helpful are they actually going to be for your planning journey. And I think it's just important because, especially for a planner, coordinator, and photographer, they're there with you, especially for the planner. If they're doing full service planning, they're there from the beginning to the end. You're spending the better part of a year working with them. You really want to make sure that's a good fit. Coordinator and photographer, they're spending the entire day with you. The photographer is often going to be in intimate kind of getting ready spaces with the couple, and you just want someone that you're going to feel comfortable with. And so that's why I definitely recommend discovery calls, because you can get a sense of their experience, get a sense of the vibe, see if it's going to be the right fit. I did ask ChatGPT for frequently asked questions that couples might ask about vendors when doing research. If you have any questions, I do see a couple of people watching, so please drop them in the chat and I'll try to get to it. But one of the frequently asked questions that came up was, should you tell vendors the budget that you have? As a planner, I typically do, because I do have a sense of what the couple is willing to spend, because we've done the budget exercise by that point. But if you're, it's probably the first time you're planning a wedding or an event, and you really have no idea what industry standard pricing is, then this is where your friend who has gotten married before, that might come in handy. You might ask them, hey, like, how much did you pay for your photographer? And they'll tell you, but if they got married 5 years ago, that might not be as relevant. So just keep that in mind. But if you've done a little bit of research, you kind of have an idea of what sort of industry standard pricing is, then I would tell them what the bottom range of your budget is. Only, especially if they don't have pricing on their website, which a lot of vendors I know do not have pricing, then I would give them your budget up front so that they can say yay or nay, or they can send you their pricing. Maybe it'll be really close. You can get on a call with them to see if it's worth flexing up your budget, or if you have a little bit more money to spend. But if you have truly no idea how much something is supposed to cost and you're just doing research, then you can definitely just ask for their pricing package. I would ask, if there's people who want to get on a call without providing any kind of pricing, I would definitely be wary of that, because you want to get a sense, at least if they're even in the budget range, because if they're completely beyond, then you don't want to waste anyone's time, including yours and theirs. So I think it's important that they do give you pricing so that you at least can say it's somewhere in the ballpark of the budget that I do have. Are there any red flags you should look out for when doing vendor outreach? And I would say, yes, there's definitely red flags. I think if they are not professional and not communicative from jump, from the time you're inquiring, then that's going to be indicative of the rest of the time that they're going to be working with you. I think first impressions are really important, especially in the service industry and especially in the wedding industry. There's so many great vendors you can work with. If someone is not kind to you, if someone is not being responsive from the very beginning, then I would definitely just nip that in the bud right then and right there. Even for planners, if I have to keep chasing and chasing and chasing, I understand many people are solopreneurs, small business owners, and I get it. But if they're not at least, apologetic after it, because there's times that I've definitely missed emails, inquiry emails, and even if weeks have passed, I will follow up and just really apologize for the delay in getting back to them, knowing that they've probably moved on, but that's okay. I just want to do my part and, explain or not explain, but just, please excuse the delay in getting back to them, just because of the busy season and whatnot. And there's, of course, tools that people can use like out of office messages and auto replies and things like that. So I think if someone is not communicative or responsive or not professional from the beginning, that's a pretty good tell of what's to come. So I would definitely look out for that. If you get to the stage of wanting to maybe book them after you talk to them, but they don't have a contract, no invoice, no nothing, and they're just like, please Zelle me X amount, I would be a little bit concerned about that because I understand, again, like many wedding vendors are small business owners and they might just be starting out or they might be a solopreneur, but they should have some type of transactional document that they are able to provide to their customers, so that the customer can feel safe in providing hundreds of dollars for a deposit or thousands of dollars for a deposit. There should be something to safeguard the business and also the couple. So if they don't have anything, I would feel like that's kind of a red flag, because that means they're just not really established or experienced. And if they're not established or experienced, just to provide an invoice or some type of document to say they're going to do the job for you, then that's a red flag to me for sure. Another question that comes up probably a lot is, how do you know what is fair pricing? This is a really hard question to answer because there is such a wide range of pricing. There isn't really just a standard. I can probably tell you kind of what the median is just based on what I know, but I'm also based in Los Angeles and I've worked a lot in New York, two of the probably most expensive places to get married or to live in general. But I think, a little bit of research goes a long way. Again, asking around to people who might have gotten married before. And then as you're doing some research, as you're reaching out, you'll kind of see a pattern in the range of pricing that vendors have. I think Google can only take you so far. I think because there's just so much information out there. Places like The Knot, I realize, now require vendors to put pricing on their website, or not their website, but their marketplace storefront. So I would definitely look through those to people who have them, because then it'll kind of give you an idea of what people are charging for certain things. I think maybe this is I can definitely do videos, follow-up videos about the pricing for certain vendors of what I've seen for people, like the standard kind of minimum average for like a photographer or a florist or whatnot, that I feel like you have to kind of invest if you want a certain level of expertise. And my last question that I'm going to address is, which vendors do you need to book first? The reason people get really overwhelmed is because there's so many things to do, so many vendors to book and research. But of course, if you're doing it in phases and if you're doing it in the order in which they're supposed to happen, then it'll be a little bit less overwhelming. So yes, there is a order in which to book vendors. I think the first one, obviously, being the venue, because you need a date. You need to make sure you have a venue, a place to get married in. If you are using a planner, if you do want to hire a planner, I highly, highly recommend booking the planner before you even have the venue. And the reason I say that is because they can save you a lot of time with budget development. They can save you a lot of time with the venue research. I mean, it's good to research just so you know like what you want, but I think if you do are even thinking about using a full service planner, I think you should definitely book the planner before anything else, for sure. Then venue, and then I would say the next thing you want to probably book is a photographer, because photographers are typically, if they're popular, they get booked up pretty quickly. So if you are getting married in a season that's busier, like peak season, like in the fall or in the spring, then I would definitely put photographer at the top of the list in terms of like order. But that's a great segue, because I did want to let you know about my wedding planning guide that you can download at tinyurl.com/best wedding guide. tinyurl.com/best wedding guide. And it will give you the order in which to book vendors. And basically, it'll give you kind of like for each phase, what vendors you should book first. And then for the next phase, which vendors you should book. So if you want a little preview of that, then you can download that. You can also sign up for my newsletter, where you'll receive updates on future lives. I'll be here pretty much every Wednesday for Wedding Planning Wednesdays for right now. And I'll also be launching my digital wedding planner product, which is a series of Google Sheets and Google Docs and Google Slides templates. It also has my comments throughout the documents, so that you can see my recommendations and suggestions from a planner's point of view. It is my first time launching it. I'm launching it on September 10th. And I will be having some bonuses that go along with it, like personalized consultation, and other things. So be sure to sign up for my newsletter so you can have updates about that when I finally go live with it. But if there's no other questions, I am going to end this here. I hope you found this session helpful. I know it's really overwhelming when there's so many vendors that you need to reach out to, so many people that you really need to be talking to. But I hope this kind of helps you cut down the stress a little bit by giving you kind of more of a guidance and better framework in which you can approach vendor research. See you next time.